A video request from Mark Del Rio. How are you? Next video request. Can you please talk about what the world will be like in 1,000 years from now? Thanks. I think you already gave me that request a few months ago, Mark. I'm starting to remember. Thanks for requesting it on the actual video page. I was a little bit apprehensive about doing it before because I kind of felt like I should think about it more, but I was laying in bed thinking about it last night, and so yeah, this is what I think the world will be like in 1,000 years. I think it's going to be a lot different from now. I think it'll be, like as different from now as we are now from 1,000 years ago. But I think it'll be, I think we'll be halfway there in 100 years, or more than halfway in 100 years. I think in 1,000 years, it's not that long from now, I mean, if people live 100 years, that's only 10 generations. But I guess if you have kids, say if you have really long generations, like you have kids when you're 50, yeah, that's only 20 generations, so not that long. Yeah, I think by then, see, I read that humans from channel book Law of One from the Venusians, that human beings are supposed to live for 900 years. That's how long our bodies are designed for if we're living in good technology. I think in 1,000 years we'll pretty much be there. I heard that I think that Billy Mayer, and I don't know if he was really abducted or not, said that Pleiadians live for 700 years, and they're like humans from utopian worlds. But I think by then we could be living like 900 years. So by then, yeah, it'll be like a lifetime from now. But, or at least a few hundred. I think by then we'll have, we will have cleaned up our environment by then and cured all of the diseases that we don't know how to cure, like cancer. We won't be getting cancer from the pollution. I think it wouldn't surprise me if we have only 500 people living here on the world. Ted Turner put the Georgia Guidestones there saying, in the future our goal is to have 500 million people on the whole planet. I think we can support more than that. How many do we have? We have like 15 times that now or something, 14 times that now. But I do think in the future, there will be places that we just have not developed, like that will be even less developed than they are now. Like the whole Amazonian basin, because we will have recognized that as a necessary part of our ecosystem. So it'll be jungle with all of the snakes and tigers and everything over there. Same thing with the equatorial jungles in Africa and even Southeast Asia and stuff. I think places like Australia will have been terraformed by then. Australia will probably have about 100 million people living in giant cities, like that guy Venus Project describes, just prefab cities where all of the pieces of the buildings are just snapped together like Lego pieces, and they're built like in concentric circles, and in the center of the city is where all of the industry is, and then in the outer edges is where the people live, and kind of like oases in the middle of the desert of Australia. But they will have used all of the free energy. I think we'll have free energy by then, so we'll have used all that to have plenty of water, to desalinate water, and then use that to farm plants and vegetables inside of giant skyscraper buildings with aeroponics, which is it's like hydroponics, but the roots are dangling in air and like really humid air, and then you put your phosphorus tablets in there to neutrify the air that goes around the roots to simulate the dirt, and then the fluorescent lights to grow it, and the buildings will be hermetically sealed so they don't have to deal with the bugs. Won't have to use genetic engineering to make them bug resistant, or pesticides to make them bug resistant. There just won't be any bugs, can't get in there. And I think North America will have lots of people. North Europe will have lots of people. And all through Russia will have loads of people. Russia will be the most populated country in the world. China will have lots of people. And India, places that are where they already screwed up the environment, was going to be where all the people are. They will have terraformed the Sahara Desert and the Middle Eastern Desert. There'll be lots of those cities. Those kind of look like, I guess, Star Wars, when you go into the city and it's just this like oasis city in the middle of nowhere. Kind of similar to how it was in the Middle Ages, where the walled city, not so much sprawling. But you would have people living out in the, boonies. There'll always be people who want to be, loners out there. We will have interstellar travel to other planets and be in constant communication with all the other aliens. And I think most of us will have traveled to those other planets just to visit, but not really to live. We'll have realized by then that you're supposed to stay on your planet. We have our bodies are designed for this planet with the gravitation and the atmosphere and everything. When we visit the other planets, we're not going to be as high vibration enough to be able to just walk around in them. We're going to be physical, so we're going to have to be in our spacesuits. But we will know of planets that do have similar enough of environments for us to walk around in and stuff. And I think there'll be a couple of those where we can actually, kind of like how people immigrate from country to country, you can immigrate from this planet to that planet. We will have terraformed Mars by then, but there'll be another race of people. There'll be Martians whose bodies have adapted to Mars, but they'll come from Earth, but they will have adapted after you get to Mars. In just like a few years, you would adapt to Mars, and then they will genetically adapt as well. I don't think scientists these days realize how quickly humans or animals genetically adapt to new environments. They think with Darwinian that it's just some kind of like accidental survival of the fittest, like the ones who just got the random mutation that happens to be beneficial for that new environment were the ones who survived. And I think it's more conscious than that, kind of more similar to intelligent design. Just in a matter of a couple of generations, you can, the DNA would mutate and kids would be born already with different genes. We've seen that with polar bears. They're already smaller than they were before, and I don't think that's just diet. I think they're actually kind of mutating to be smaller, but that's just my theory. But yeah, Mars will have a few million people on it. Even the moon will have people, but not living there permanently. Not many people. It'll be a vacation area. I think we'll have anti-gravity by then. The spaceship's just like with Pleiades, so it'll basically be like an alien planet in 1,000 years. So we'll be able to fly all over the world to different places, and we'll all travel. Job situation will be more. People will switch around jobs a lot more, careers a lot more. Like everybody will just be kind of like it was in the past. Like in the past, you will do your trade. This guy's a blacksmith, this guy's a carpenter, and everybody was basically the same except for the super elite. It'll kind of be like that in the future. No matter what job you have, whether you're a maintenance guy for the big machines that maintain everything, or an engineer who designs new machines, or a teacher, it won't be that much education, and the education will be really streamlined, efficient, people will be smart, whereas people can just you can interchange careers a lot, and everybody will be like level, we'll make about the same amount of money, and there's not going to be any class strife or anything like that. Except for the leaders. The leaders will be kind of like the best people, but they're not going to be like, like the upper class, like rich, snooty people. They'll just be, and like, just the smartest people. And I don't think it's going to be particularly I don't think there are going to be any jobs where people pass like it was in the past, where you do what your dad did and your dad did what his dad did and your kid's going to do what you do. Like that's why we have all the last names. I'm John Carpenter. We're the Carpenters. I'm Billy Smith. We're the Smiths. We're the So I don't think it'll be like that. It'll be a lot more jumping around with jobs, and generations will do different things. It's already made that difference now. That change now. Racially, I think that say they're like a billion people on the whole planet, or less, 500 million. People be like, well, where would all the souls who are alive now go? I think they will have been reincarnated in a planet more like Earth is now, because it's going to be so much different in 1,000 years. It's going to be like a utopia. And the world we live in now, there's a lot of like stupid people, like young souls, and it's too much of a leap. Like the world, the technology, the level of utopia is changing so much. It's going to be changed so much by then that it's just too much of a leap for those kinds of people. I mean, you have to live thousands and thousands and thousands of lives, millions and millions of years, to go from monkey to like a Pleiadian, or like what we're going to be in 1,000 years. So, and I'm thinking maybe there are a lot of people alive today who were animals like in just a couple lifetimes ago. Like, now there's so many less animals, but there's so many more people. Well, if you can't reincarnate into an animal, just do it into a person body, and that's why there's so many wars and stupid people around today. This is my little theory. But, so that's where all those souls will go. And people will have kids. I think people will do stuff mainly, not so much off of like the ego, like their personal desire, but based on what they think is best for the world. So if you're in a part of the world and there's not as much population and you could use more people, I think it'll make people more motivated to have kids. But if there's a place that's got a lot of people, I think it'll motivate people to have less kids, and they won't really care. Because by then, I think we'll all believe in reincarnation, and so we'll know that if you don't have kids or do something this go around, you will in the next. So racially, I think in 1,000 years, the different various races will still represent the areas that they had originally come from. So if you go to Africa, there's going to be more black people there. You go to Latin America, there's going to be more like Latinos there, and Northern Europe, more white people there, but not by much. Only like enough to be noticeable, and for kids not to really think about. Kids are just going to think like, oh, we're all the same race. Some people are a little bit darker than others, whatever. But they're going to be like, people are going to be like, yeah, 1,000 years ago, all the people here in China were Chinese, were yellow-skinned, slanty-eyed people, and they'll be like, oh yeah, that's why there's more slanty-eyed yellow people here than over there. But it's not going to be that big of a difference. I think 90% of the people are going to be homogenous. It's going to be some like mix between all the races that we have now, which I think will make beautiful people, and very intelligent people. When you mix up the genetics, you get the way genetics works, and I've seen it explained before, but the chromosomes, they take all of the best traits, and they don't take the negative ones, the recessive ones that cause cancer or like big nose or something like that. So it'll be easier for that to happen. And so we'll have like really beautiful and really smart, bronze-skinned, robust, tall, really smart people who've got every single race known to mankind in there. But there will still be some purebloods. There'll be purebloods of all the races, but not many. Maybe just like a couple hundred of each one in the whole world. And they will, they'll be born as a pureblood, and they will feel like a personal responsibility to breed as that pure blood. But it'll only be like a personal kind of halfway responsibility, because if they get married to somebody who's not, nobody's gonna like look down on them, because the purebloods who do exist would just have more kids. They'd have a bunch of kids, and everybody would be like, and they might even set up a fund for them, you know? We'd have extra money. They'd set up extra funds for, if there's one race, like the jet black race is about to go extinct because there's only like 5 guys left and 5 girls, they would set them up a fund to pay them a bunch of money to have a whole bunch of kids to bring the race back up. You know, and they would scientifically know once it gets smaller, below a certain number, you're risking inbreeding, which is going to screw up the genetics. So, you know, I mean, maybe it would be down to like 100 or something, but yeah, there will be some of those. We will know about all the different aliens in our, human aliens in our galaxy, and we'll have it all mapped out 3-dimensionally where you can see it all the, you know, solar systems and galaxy systems and everything. And what else? What will I kind of got distracted when the neighbor walked by. Yeah, I think how people will look different. Apart from just the mixture of all the races, I think our eyes. I saw this thing on Yahoo a couple weeks ago, and the site they scientists did some kind of calculation that we're going to look different. Our foreheads are going to be bigger, and our eyes are going to get bigger. And so I think so. We're going to be more cerebral, so our foreheads are going to be a little bit bigger, and our eyes are going to be a little bit bigger. But that's going to be attractive to the people living then, you know. So like when they see videos of like me, they're going to be like, he looks like a cretin. He looks like a chimpanzee, you know. Little forehead, little eyes. Oh, beady, stupid person. But you know, even people 100 years ago looked different. You know, like the pictures of the people from the Depression. I saw the movie Cloud Atlas the other day, and when they had like Tom Hanks made up as somebody in the past, he was really ugly, like a big red bulbous nose and patches on his skin, and you know, like I think that's how more like people looked like in the past, and the more deformed people, due to I guess childhood accidents or I don't know what it is. You see that more in the ghetto of third world countries too, like deformed people and stuff. Yeah, so you're not going to have any of that. Like everybody's going to be beautiful, and I think they're going to be taller. We're going to be generally in a higher vibration, higher frequency then. I think we gradually go up higher frequency, so we're not going to be necessarily heavier in weight, but we'll be taller and stronger. I think we're going to be more robust. And reincarnationally, women and men are going to be reincarnating in the very different sexes more frequently. Nowadays, when you know you're a man for like hundreds of years, life after life after life, and a woman for hundreds of years, and you don't make that switch more. But I think in 1,000 years, people are going to be making the switch a lot more. Like, you know, just a couple lives as a man, or whatever. Yeah, people, and there's going to be less of a difference between men and women in terms of the jobs they have. You know, they're going to be, you know, every job's going to have, you know, almost closer to 50-50 on all of them. And I think the leadership positions are going to be about 50-50. And I think physically, because, and you know, even personality-wise, men and women are going to be more similar. And even physically, if you look at the face, a little bit more similar too. I think men are going to become a little bit more effeminate looking, you know, like just round foreheads or whatever, you know. And women are more, because we're eventually going to get to androgyny, you know, like way in the heavenly realms. You're just a spirit, you know. And so since we're going in that direction, it's going to be closer to that than it is now. And so I think physically men and women are going to be a little bit more similar, you know. Like right now, men are like twice as strong as women, you know, and like 5 and 6 inches taller. I think in 1,000 years, men will be like a couple inches taller, and you know, only maybe like 10% stronger or something. Or and like pound for pound, not like right now, pound for pound, men are probably like 50% stronger. and women are 50% more limber. And in the 1,000 years, they'll probably be about 5% strong, 10% stronger, and women will be 10% more limber. But I think it'll be taller. They'll be like 6 average for men, 6'6", average for women, like 6'3" or something, 6'4", and more robust, more muscular, because it's got kind of more beautiful. They'll be more be exercising more. I think the dress people will wear will be kind of like Star Trek type outfits, spandex, which flaunt the physical form, the muscles and everything. People will appreciate the beautiful physical form more. That, and also, that for when you're outside, running around and doing your thing. And when you're inside, like dinner parties or whatever, instead of in business, instead of dressing in, more informal, I guess, type of stuff, you would be dressing in robes, like long white flowing robes, and being naked underneath. And I think, there'll be more nudity as well, like just straight nudity, like at the beaches and stuff. I think in terms of like marriage, I think people will be married for like, long enough to raise their kids, and then they'll have another partner. I think people will probably average about 2 husbands or 2 wives within their lifetime, not at the same time, but with some people doing just one person their whole life, and others like 4 or 5, but I think the average would be about 2, and that'll be probably like what would be expected and what would make sense, so people can kind of contrast different personalities that you deal with. So jobs will be, by then everything will be so systematic. Whenever you do something new, you get really, what if it's a job or whatever, you get, as time goes on, you get more and more systematic with it. Like you do it, you just do everything without even thinking about it. You just know that that's the way it needs to be. And so by then, religion will have turned into science. There will be no more religion. Like religion will just be institutions of the past, and they will have morphed into science. It will have morphed into just a knowledge of how the universe works and how everything works, and it'll be just, systematic with our economy and our political structure as well. So the person who wins the elections would be the person who's just polled the highest, and then he's just naturally, they just do the polls, and maybe 5 polls, and then boom, he's just in there. And the debates would be a lot more, like informal. There'd be like 50 of them, and you can show up to ones you want. And if you really want it, you can show up to all 50, and more people will participate. But as far as like getting jobs in the educational system, it'll be a lot more systematic. So, there'll be less people actually manually controlling it. It'll just be kind of like a run by itself. Like if you enroll in the college, you just push the buttons, and you're enrolled. You don't have to like ask for permission to enroll or ask somebody to get you to sign up. You just push the buttons, and then you just show up at the class, and you do it, and then you take the tests, and then you get the certificate, and there you go. And you can, and there's no time limit. You can show up to a couple classes now, and then take a few months off, and show up at a couple more, and whenever you get around to it, you do it, and then you have the certificate to do the job. And then you do that job somewhere, and then you get sick of it, and then you do like a year-long certificate program or whatever that you can afford. Because the economy will be such that if you didn't want to work, you wouldn't even have to work at all. You could just move into some room and just live there and just live really basically. But, it'll be a peaceful society, so people will be able to, people will always be driven to do something that aids the society as a whole. So there's not going to be like a bunch of people sitting on their ass twiddling their thumbs and everybody like, hey, who's manning the buildings? You know, you'd be like, if you wanted an extra nice big room or extra money to be able to take the trip up to the moon or do this or that, you would just go and get a job as the maintenance guy on the thing and work on it, you know, or you would do anything. But I think the jobs that are fun aren't going to be fun and super high paying. You know, like actors. Acting is fun, acting in movies, but those people are also paid a shitload. I think in the future, the people who act in all the big movies, they're not going to get paid any more than the guy who like maintains the machines, the mechanic. I think they'll you know, the fact that they get to have a fun job and get famous and all that will be payment enough to them, and they're not going to need all that extra money. Although, well, I think they'll probably get a little bit more money, but it's not going to be like a crazy bit bigger like how it is now, like millions of dollars. Same thing with sports stars, because people, you know, like nowadays, people are downloading movies and not wanting to pay for it. You know, and people are like, oh no, who's going to pay for it? Well, in the future, people are just going to watch movies and not be so into paying for the movies. They'll be more free, and so it's not going to generate all that much money, but people aren't going to be freaking out about it because they like their job of acting. But you know, I think some jobs will be you know, hereditary. I think by then people will have realized that certain skills can be hereditary. You know, so like athletes, I think they'll be definitely like in the past with jobs. You know, if the father's a carpenter and the son's a carpenter, I think that it'll be like that with sports, like basketball, because you need tall people to play basketball. So there'll be families of tall people. You know, like, and that we're kind of having that now, you know, because basketball is a relatively new sport, and we've had like basketball superstars who are relatively, basketball superstar families who are relatively haven't been families in that sport for very long, and you know, like Michael Jordan's nephew is now a basketball star, and I think his son is, and so it'll run in the family, and I think basketball and sports stars like marry each other a lot, and so then they have kids and their kids do well because they're genetically inclined. Yeah, I think there'll be definitely families, legacies on that in sports, but not so much with in terms of the other like mental jobs. It definitely will exist and people will understand it, how it's all genetic, but there's going to be so much intermarriage that these skills are going to be like passing around a lot. You know, from like one person to the next, and the genes are going to get diffused so much that we're all going to be pretty much have the same talent level and everything in the future. There's some scientists who say, in the future you're going to have the super short, fat people who are going to just be the workers, and then the tall, lean people who are going to be the bosses, and it's totally stratified, kind of like the movie The Time Machine, where the guy went into the future and there were those two races, I can't remember the names of them, but no, I don't think it's going to be like that. That's a bad future that we don't want. It'll be a more homogenized future, but people will feel cool with that because they'll know that the whole universe is like that. You know, like if there's one person, there's a ton of people doing the same thing. You know, like if we'll know that there's all these other planets, infinite amount of planets just like us somewhere out there, and so we're not going to feel so like feeling like needy to be special or different or original. We'll just be we'll be comfortable being all like the Borg sort of, but we'll still be free to be whoever we want, and there'll be different personalities and. But in 1,000 years, we're not, I mean, you know, the difference between now and 1,000 years is going to be like the same difference between 1,000 years and 50,000 years. It's going to be even different in 50,000 years. In 50,000 years, we'll be like way sexually homogenous, and so, you know, cerebral and smart and able to do anything, fly anywhere. But In 1,000 years, we'll still be like recognizable to how we are today. Like if somebody were to do a time jump into 1,000 years from now on the planet Earth, they would be able to fit in pretty easily. You know, they'd be able to even walk the streets without people taking too many double takes at them, and they'd be able to fit right in and have friends and have fun and kind of be one of the people, you know, and they'd love it. But and same thing from 1,000 years, they could come back now and fit in and have fun. But but because, you know, we're still going to have a lot of the same traits. They're still going to be really competitive. We're going to have the sports teams and the sports and all that kind of stuff and the records. But it's all going to be really in the ranking system and everything. But it's not going to be all ego, like freaked out, you know, like comparing, you know, where people have to hide and try to make themselves look good, hide their weaknesses and try to make themselves look good, the best, and being all ego-centered. I think people will just want to do they'll use the ranking system and the competition and everything just to motivate themselves, just like how you would motivate yourself now. Like, oh, the last time I did this, I did 20, so I'll see if I can do 20 this time. I should be able to do it. And I've been doing it a lot, so I should be able to do 22. Let's try it, you know, like that. But it'll be really systematic. Everything will be really systematic. So, for example, you'll have standardized tests and everything, and everybody will have their grade up on their website of all the standardized tests. So, you know, if you're like hanging out with somebody and you're just chit-chatting about somebody, they'll be like, oh yeah, you know, Melinda, yeah, she's my friend, she's cool, yeah, she's really good at history, you know, she got a 675 on the history exam. And she's good at geography, got a 822. Oh, cool. Yeah, she doesn't really like math. Only a 260 on that one. You know, and that kind of a thing. And everybody will know about all of the different standardized tests for all the different subjects. They'll be like really famous, you know, and they'll last forever. They will have been like written by somebody, and then just the legacy would carry on, and that's the test. And it'd be, you know, revised every few years, but everybody would know about it. It would just be, and everybody would take it multiple times. And there would be like hundreds of them for everything. And like for the certificate program, you would study something to take the test to become a doctor, you know, and, you know, like the bar and for a lawyer and all this stuff. And same thing with physical fitness tests and all that. We actually already have that stuff now, you know, like, well, with the CrossFit people, they have their different WODs, their different workouts with all the different times. And then with Strava, people go on rides, and you have the mountain, and you have your placement on that, and how your and your record and all that. And it's, you know, it's already started. But by then, people will be really into it, and they'll be really competitive, and they'll be looking at all the different, leaderboards that they're on, and doing their best and comparing with themselves to everybody. And there'll be ego, but it won't be, you know, it won't cause people to fight or anything. You know, in 50,000 years it'll be different. People won't really care so much about that. But yeah, but in 1,000 years they'll be into that, and they'll be really physical too. You know, people will be really robust and really fit. Probably the average woman will probably be about as strong as Arnold Schwarzenegger was when he was big. And they'll probably look like you know, those CrossFit chicks, like really strong looking, but not like muscle bound. But the world will be very natural, you know, because we will have designated all, you know, the jungles and stuff to just stay as jungles. The Pacific Northwest, we'll have all of the, redwoods, and all of the bears and stuff will be in their little designated areas, but the energy will be so peaceful that the bears will have enough food to eat and all that, and you'll be able to just walk up to these wild animals and pet them and stuff, and they'll know that humans are kind of like the guardians, you know, and they won't attack you because they'll have their own little, things to eat, and maybe they'll even have food that we just feed them, some kind of protein chunks, and they won't even have to run after little animals. But no, I don't think so. I think they'll attack, they'll hunt just like they did before. We will have eradicated mosquitoes, though. No more mosquitoes. Art movies will be even in 1,000 years, there'll be recreations. We will have a movie about every battle that ever existed, every kingdom, every king that ever existed. It'll just be recreations. We have recreations of like Civil War battles, the reenactors. Well, that's what like movies are gonna be in the future, and like parallel universes. Like we have all kinds of like Armageddon type movies. Most of our future movies are of like a fallen Earth. Like what was the new one with Will Smith, where they had to leave the Earth, and so we'd have a lot of those movies of like parallel. That would be the equivalent of the horror movie, because we will have that genre in the future. Movies about parallel because we'll believe in parallel universes. There are parallel universes about where we had nuclear war and all this stuff, and the drama, and then comedies will be a lot more. As time goes on, you have to do more and get more outlandish to be funny and to be edgy. So in 1,000 years, there's going to be no rules, no holds barred. They're going to be making jokes about everything, dude. Stuff that's going to be that you would think now maybe even really offensive, but they'll just be like, oh, that's funny, because there'll be no bigotry or anything in the future. So they'll be like mocking, everybody. They'll be like making movies about like the 20th century, and they'll have like people acting like really stupid and ridiculous, and they'll just think that's funny. Like making maybe a movie about the election process in 2004, and they'll have like the politicians out there saying total nonsense, and everybody like, and they'll think that's funny. That'll be like a comedy. They'll definitely have a sense of humor. People will definitely have a sense of humor and joke around a lot. And they'll have because all of our educational system will be good, and we'll have so much knowledge about the past, and because in the future we will have studied so much. We'll study our whole lives. That'll be one of our favorite pastimes. Not being so. See, right now we're really receptive. We're just kind of mindless consumers, and not many of us are the creative people. A lot of people just sit down and watch TV or watch movies and play video games, and so they idolize the people who create. Like the actors and the writers and the directors and the creators of the video games. Well, in the future, there'll be less of a difference, economically, like I was saying before, but also artistically. So there'll be lots of different variations of art, because more people will be art, and it'll be more like source-driven, crowd-source-driven, kind of like YouTube. So there'll be a lot more people, like doing news. Like you could be like, I watched the news today, and if you hear your neighbor say that, you'd be like thinking to yourself, hell, that could have been anybody who you watched. There will be like a central news, exporter of news that has that, but it's like all crowdsourced. People just from the locale that it came, and then you just type in like what place you want to get the news, and then it goes there. And if it's national news, then it gets funneled into the national news, and the ones who people watch the most are the ones who are the biggest. But it's all driven by organically by whoever watches. There's not going to be like a guy on top pulling the strings. And but also with like art, like anybody would be able to make a movie with pretty much the same technology as even the best people in the world. So by the end of somebody's life, say if they live 500 years, by the end of their life, probably a majority of the people will have made a movie, will have written a book, will have worked as a guide, worked as a teacher in some form or another, and then also worked as some sort of an engineer, like developing something new, usually where they're from. So there'll be a lot, So it'll be a safe place. You'll be able to just let your kid walk around and all over the town, and all the neighbors will be take care of the kid, and it won't be dangerous, because there will be no poverty. That's the main thing that drives dangerous people. It'll be, the world will be very natural, a lot of nature, and people will be doing a lot of sports in the future too. like trips out and like rowing across the Atlantic would be something that a lot of people do. And mountain biking down from mountaintops, like paved straight down the mountain, and then water slides, like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, big water slides. You jump in the water slide and it launches you really high in the air. And you go to the moon and they'll have the high dives from really high where you fall really slowly into the water and jumping on trampolines really high and flipping around. And and I think there'll be substance consumption. There'll be drinking and drugs and stuff, but it'll only be like on certain occasions, like where you go to the water park slide and then the place next to the water slide is where the drinking will be and the discos and stuff. And people won't be doing it at home while they watch movies, or play video games and stuff. I think there will be a lot of floating cities. Well, we will have anti-gravity by then, which will be designed from element 118, a really heavy element, spinning around really, 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 really fast, which will use the centrifugal force to kind of pull it off of the Earth, make it light. And there'll be all these floating cities right above, so that you don't have to, so that the area below can be nurtured with like forests and stuff, for the places for people to have fun, to go mountain biking and canoeing and stuff like that. And in 1,000 years, I think we will have some of those. But I think in 1,000 years, our technology will still be improving. Because, the aliens aren't just going to give us everything. They're going to leave it up to us to do it ourselves, because, this is our planet and everything's different. And we'll realize by then that that's kind of part of the thrill of being alive is creating stuff for yourself. But we will be really familiar with all the other places. So that's why I'm saying it'll be so advanced in 1,000 years. Like, it's much different from now as in 1,000 years is now and 1,000 years ago. So we'll have all that technology, that anti-gravity, free energy from the 0 point field, from little things that are designed in such a way that just suck the energy out. And placed in certain positions in the Earth, power points in the Earth. Yeah, it'll be like a utopia in 1,000 years. Yeah, I think English will be the language. See, they like in 1,000 years, people will be able to watch YouTube videos from now, and so they will adopt the words and the phrases and the language that we use now, and learn and study so much of the past. So they'll be very familiar with our personality, how we are now, and how we were in the 20s and the 30s and everything. So our language is going to be really similar in 1,000 years. Like, if you were to pop yourself now into 1,000 years and hear people talk, it'll be really similar. It'll be like you'll be able to understand everything, and the accent will be really similar. They'll have more words, because there's going to be a lot more stuff that doesn't exist now, and the accent will be, I think, a little bit more soft. People will, speak more deliberately and like kind, with a kind tone in their voice, kind of like a sing-songy like this. But also, the more energetic people will talk really fast like this and loud, the accent will be an amalgamation of all the different people who live alive now. So, the vowel sounds and consonants will be a little bit different. But I think, and the accent will be a little bit different depending on where you go in the world, but not really that much, because I think people will travel around a lot. But yeah, so English will be the future, the language of the future. But people will know the language of their ancestors. In 1,000 years, Chinese people in China will still know how to speak Chinese. They'll learn it because they'll be interested in knowing what it's like. They'll be able to read and write it. But their first language is going to be English. And when they talk to each other, not 99% of, like 100% of them are going to talk to each other in English. And just for fun, every once in a while, talk to each other in Chinese. But they'll just learn it just because they're interested in how it was in the past. And And we will have also discovered that aliens, like the language, the words that we have learned from them, in even English language, English words that we've gotten, actually originally came from the aliens. So we'll learn that English was actually, they'll be speaking words that are similar to English because they actually had them first because we got them from them. And same thing with letters in the alphabet, certain ones and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's what the world will be like in 1,000 years. Oh my God, 45 minutes. That's long enough. Okay, peace out.